Do you know what brawlers have the strongest attacks in Brawl Stars? Because we got a tier list for that today. Let's do it. First off, quick word about how this tier list is going to work. For this attack tier list, we're not including and we're not thinking about any of the brawlers' supers or their star powers, just their attack. So do not think about their super, do not think about their star power. I know some star powers help out some brawlers' attacks, but for the majority of them, they don't. So it's only going to be fair if we don't include any supers and we don't include any star powers. Think about as far as how much usefulness, how much utility, how much overall effectiveness each brawler is going to get out of their attack. The impact that attack is going to have on a game if we're just including the attack of that brawler. All right. Also, first of all, quick shout out to the Coach Cory Pro Squad for helping make this list. You guys, as always, can follow them down below in the description. All right, starting out at number 25 and in the F tier, what I think is the arguable worst attack in the game, the least impactful attack, it's gonna be El Primo. El Primo's attack, I mean, look, El Primo is a threat because he has so much freaking health. He's tied for the highest amount of health in the game. Once he's within range, it honestly doesn't matter how much damage his attack does because he has so much freaking health. You're not gonna out damage him as far as killing him before he kills you. His attack, it honestly doesn't do that much damage, and obviously its range is incredibly short, the shortest in the game. So honestly, because his attack range is so short, as far as how strong the attack is, it's not that high. So at number 24, also in the F tier, it's going to be Rosa for a very similar reason. I do think it is a little bit better than El Primo's because it is wider and it is longer, but it also actually does less DPS. So there's give and take with that. Not quite as good in some ways, but better in some others, but still going to be in the F tier for me. All right, now we're in the D tier. At number 23, it's got to be Frank. And look, when you talk about Frank and it's just his normal attack, he's honestly not that threatening. His range is okay for a tank, right? But of course he stops to attack every single time. And really the threatening part about Frank is his super. His attack by himself is not that strong of an attack, especially too without a star power. All right, so at number 22, it's going to be Poco. I mean, Poco by himself, if he's just hitting one person, it's one of the lowest DPS, damage per second, in the game, if not the lowest. Now, he can hit multiple people, and that's why he's above some of these others, but he's still a very low damage attack brawler. The range of it isn't that long. It is very wide, so he can hit multiple people, but it's still not that high damage. At number 21, it's going to be Shelly. Now, Shelly's effective range is not very long. She has a somewhat long range for a close range brawler anyways, but it does very little damage at medium range, which is not a great attribute. So really, Shelly is a close range brawler. Honestly, it's really her super that makes Shelly so threatening. Her attack by itself is actually not that much damage compared to some other close range brawlers. So here you're probably gonna start seeing a trend. At number 20, it is Bull, and yes, look, Bull's effective range for his attack is not that high. So as far as just the attack is going, it's not a very threatening attack. It does have good burst damage, so it can do a ton of damage at once, but it, you know, he has to be very close range to do it. And at 19, it's going to be Daryl for a very similar reason. I think his is a little bit better. He has a little bit better effective range, and he can do a little bit more damage. The reload is a little bit slower, so there's some give and take there. But I think arguably Daryl's a little bit better, but still in the D tier for me. And the last brawler in the D tier, at number 18, it's going to be Leon. Leon, I think, is the best of these close range brawlers as far as his attack is concerned. His effective range is a little bit longer, I think, and he can do a little bit more damage overall. I mean, think about it, he is a close range brawler with a very low amount of health, so it kind of makes sense his damage is a little bit better with his attack. Of course, he has other great attributes like his super, so when you just consider his attack, it's still not an amazing attack. That's why it's going to be still in the D tier for me, because you do still have to be in very close range for that attack to be effective. All right, now we're in the C tier. These attacks are starting to get a little bit more consistent and threatening. At number 17, it's going to be Penny. Now, Penny's attack does not do much damage per shot, but there are certain scenarios, like if people are stacking up, that she can be a big threat. This is also especially useful in Showdown with boxes, where she can really use that effect to the strongest ability. But overall, Penny's attack doesn't do that much damage per shot. It does have a decent range and an okay reload, so, well, there's that. And at 16, it's going to be Jessie for a very similar story as Penny, although I think Jessie's a little bit better. I think with that bounce, she's able to consistently get more hits, and it's not as dependent on the map as well. I think Jessie's shot is a little bit easier to get more damage. At 15, it's going to be Nita. Now, Nita's attack does not have a very long range. It does, however, have a very quick reload, so Nita can pump out those attacks very, very often. She can out-damage brawlers purely by out-reloading them and just getting a ton of attacks and having a high amount of health to keep on surviving to do the attacks. The attack itself, maybe not super threatening, but because it has such a quick reload, it can actually put out a lot of damage in a short amount of time, and it can hit multiple brawlers at once. At 14, and still in the C tier, it's going to be Tara. Now, Tara's attack, it's not the strongest attack in the game. I think we all know that. Her super, combined with her attack, makes it a very strong combination per se, but without her super and just her normal attack, well, it's an okay attack. I mean, it does all right damage. The range is pretty good, which is definitely the best part about Tara's attack. The reload is okay, but it, of course, on the plus side, it does hit multiple people, but it's not bad. Now, the last brawler in the C tier at number 13, it's going to be Carl. Now, Carl's attack is an interesting one because without, you have to consider this without his star power, right? That's the rule for this ranking. No star power, no super. So Carl's attack without star power is obviously going to be a lot worse. If Carl's star power was included, he definitely would be higher on this list, but that's true for some other brawlers as well. So Carl without a star power, it's kind of a slow attack. It is a nice attack though. It has good range and it's kind of area denial. Now, the overall DPS is a bit low when you don't have that star power, unless you're in a specific situation where you can just keep on bouncing it off a wall, and then it can be a really solid attack. You would argue Carl's attack should maybe be a little bit higher on this list. I wouldn't be totally against it, but I do think most of these brawlers high on this list are able to consistently get more damage and overall usefulness out of their attacks than Carl without star power. Alright, now we're in the B tier. These attacks are starting to get fairly consistent in the amount of usefulness and or damage that you're getting every time you're using them. So, at number 12, it's going to be Dynamite. Dynamite's attack can definitely dish out a good amount of damage. Of course, it can hit multiple people as well, and not to mention, it can attack over walls, which is definitely a very, very useful ability, and there are a rare amount of brawlers that can have attacks that can do something like that. So Dynamite, I mean, the weakness with Dynamite's attack is that it's hard to consistently hit a lot of attacks in a row, but when you do hit attacks, they can deal a solid amount of damage. All right, at number 11 in the B tier, it's going to be Bo. Bo's attack, it used to be one of the weaker ones in the game, but it has gotten buffed, well, at least in the past couple months. It's gotten a couple buffs, and it's now a pretty solid attack, and one of the main reasons Bo is a solid brawler these days. His attack has good range, it has good area explosion as well, so we can have multiple brawlers in some scenarios, but he can also spread it out a bit so he's not missing all the shots, and they now do pretty dang good damage, and he has a decent reload speed to boot. At number 10, and in the B tier, it's going to be Crow. Crow's attack, while it's not going to do that much damage, it is going to be very annoying with that poison ability, stopping people from healing and giving Crow a solid advantage in healing and pressuring the enemy with that attack. He can hit multiple people fairly easily with that really quick reload speed anyways, and a decent range for Crow as well, so we can really use that attack to be very, very annoying. Of course, you all understand how annoying that poison is, so yeah, Crow, number 10, and B tier. Now, the last brawler in the B tier at number 9 is going to be Barley. I think Barley's attack is a little bit more solid than especially Dynamite. So that area control is such a good ability. It makes Barley useful in so many different game modes and so many different maps. And he can hit a good amount of shots with his attack, and he can consistently push people back and take control of a map. Because of how wide that attack is, people do not want to push through a Barley attack, because if you're going through both of those ticks, then it can be a really solid amount of damage. And of course, attacking over walls is a very good ability. All right, now we are in the A tier. These attacks either do a very solid amount of damage, or they're just very overall consistently useful and can apply a lot of pressure on the enemy team. At number 8, it's going to be Jean. Jean's attack, while it doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage per shot, It does, of course, have a very long spread and very long range when you're using that chip shot, and that is a very useful ability. Gene can stop people from healing so often. On top of that, he can engage in fights and enemies, and they can't hit him, and he can keep on hitting them, which is extremely annoying, and obviously it's going to be very useful anytime you can keep on hitting the enemy and they can't keep hitting you. Now, it's not going to be a ton of damage, but it will keep on adding up. And of course, throughout the game, Gene can eventually use, get those people lower and then establish map control that way without even building up the enemy super. At number 7, it's going to be Piper. Now, Piper's attack, let's be honest, it's the only part about Piper that's really any good. Now, of course, her star power makes it better, but we're not talking about star powers here, so even without that, Piper's attack is still a very solid attack, able to dish out a ton of damage at once, although it definitely has a big weakness in close range. So, as always, Piper's going to be trying to stay away, as far away from enemies as possible, and then she can maximize that damage, and she can dish out a ton of damage on an enemy, and you are always trying to make sure you are not in a good spot to get hit by Piper. At number 6, it's going to be Pam. Pam's attack recently did get nerfed with a damage nerf, but it's still a very solid attack. And even though Pam has other solid attributes, it's partly that damage that makes her so strong. It has a very nice range. It has a good spread, making it easy to stop enemies from healing, getting good chip shots on enemies. But if you get in close range with Pam, she can dish out a ton of damage, and it can be very hard to avoid it all. Pam can really dish out that damage with that attack. Very solid attack for her. At number 5, it's going to be Mortis. Now, Mortis's attack, if you think about it, it doesn't have a long effective range, and it doesn't do that much damage. So, Cory, why is it so high on this list? Because of how useful it is. Imagine Mortis if his attack didn't dash, if it just did damage. He just damaged people, and he just had a fast move speed. How useful would Mortis be? Hardly at all. Without that dash, Mortis would be nothing. That dash makes him... That's the only reason Mortis is even good in solo showdown and duo showdown, is because he can dash around the map, specifically because of his attack. So honestly, maybe Mortis' attack could be higher, but because it's actually not doing that much damage and it's not hitting that many people, it's not going to be incredibly... Well, look, it's number 5 and it's in the A tier, so that's pretty good. At number 4, it's going to be Colt. Now, Colt's attack, come on. The only reason Colt is any good is he can dish out a ton of damage, and that is strictly because of the attack. That is definitely the best part about Colt. He has some other small, nice attributes, don't get me wrong, but that attack, if you hit all those shots, you can melt enemies. Now, of course, Colt does have some weaknesses with his attack, like it doesn't go around walls well at all, and he doesn't like obstacles in the way. But with all that said, Colt can still dish out a good amount of damage with that attack. It has a good range, and it does a lot of damage, so it's definitely a solid attack. At number 3, it's going to be Brock. Brock's attack with the longest range in the game is one of the better attacks in the game, and you have to always be trying to dodge and be aware of Brock's attack. And even in certain scenarios, you can even hit you off screen if you're moving towards it, which is very, very annoying, and you're not even realizing that Brock is not on screen and he's still hitting you. What the heck, man? That's incredibly annoying. It does a good amount of damage per shot, so you definitely have to be worried. You do not want to get hit by multiple of those in a row, or you might go down pretty quickly. At number 2, and in the A tier, it's going to be Rico. Rico's attack can be used in a couple different ways. Not only can it be used like Colt, where you can dish out a ton of damage in a straight line, but he can also go around walls, and a high damage attack that can go around walls and has a good range is very, very useful. Rico, his health is tied for the lowest in the game, and he still can be very useful in a lot of maps because he can just keep on hitting enemies without them hitting him. And it's obviously going to be solely because of that attack that Rico has this ability at all. So it is a very solid attack. But the best attack in the game and in the A tier, that's right, there's going to be no S tier attacks. I don't think there's any overpowered attacks, but there are some very, very good ones. The best attack in the game, in my opinion, it's going to be Spike. Spike's attack can be used in a lot of different ways. He can dish out a ton of damage with a direct hit, getting a lot of those spikes to hit at once, or he can do long range chip damage, or he can use it to attack around walls. Spike's attack can be useful in so many different ways. It has to be the best attack in the game for me. Check out other great Brawler tier lists to help you improve right over there. But that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.